introduction. It's a pleasure to be seeing all of you in person here. We've been coming to this conference since 2012, since the Viptela days. So a little bit about me. I've been in the industry for over 35 years, building solutions at companies like Cisco, Juniper, and multiple other startups. Last startup that I did was Viptela, and started Alkira in 2018. And what a ride it has been since the early days of Cisco. I've not seen this level of transformation of a technology in the networking industry. So it's such an honor to have Susan here. She's the chief architect at Chart Industries. She's been using our solution for a while, and we would love to hear her thoughts today. As you know, Chart Industries is a leading manufacturer of natural gas and clean energy industries, the equipment in those industries. Some of the problems that they were running into from the large-scale global deployment perspective was high, performance issues as well as extremely high latency. So they were looking for solutions for that. And on top of that, the complexity was increasing in the cloud deployment significantly. So simplification was key, gaining control of the routing environment, having visibility end-to-end. From that perspective was a huge need for them. And if I'm correct, you ended up reducing the latency by about 6 times in your network, which was versus the deployment that they were doing on their own. So with that, let me also introduce Kevin Kramer. He's our VP of Sales, responsible for overall sales for Alkira. And I will let Kevin introduce further Susan and also ask her some questions.
Thanks, Amir. Susan, I think it'd be best to start to kind of talk about Chart a little bit more and some of the challenges that you were trying to solve when you found Alkira from a networking perspective.
Okay, great. Chart Industries, well, again, I'm Susan. I'm the network architect at Chart. We're a global manufacturer. We have plants across several countries. And we're in mergers and acquisitions right now, so we're adding new companies pretty regularly still. One of the key problems that we were having is we had offices in, for instance, in India, accessing resources that we had already, our corporate office had made in the United States. So we had high latency just straight from, access. The original users in India had local servers, and then we moved them in the cloud so we could all use those same resources. And when we moved them into the cloud, they started complaining about, their mouse draws were really slow and their files were loading really slow. So those were some of the biggest obstacles we had. We also we re-architected our cloud 3 times because the cloud providers keep changing their technology and upgrading their technology. So we do a software upgrade on one of our devices and they're like, oh, it doesn't work that way anymore. So we have to re-architect and redesign 3 times in a 2-year span. So those were pretty big challenges. And we came to Alkira and asked them to solve those problems for us.
That's great. So how have you seen us help you kind of modernize the network at Chart and also take better advantage of the cloud environments that you have?
We're a 3-person team. We're very lean on the network side. Alkira is able to abstract a lot of the complexity for us, so we don't have to continue to learn the details of the Azure network or the AWS network infrastructure. So as we add a new network, we can simply point and click, say, go to Alkira's portal, say add this network, and they automatically get the same security profile, the same policy, and also a very logical separation from one customer's traffic to another customer's traffic.
You had a pretty unique use case with IoT, and I know that you had spoken to some other networking vendors, and it was, I think, many times you went back to them for a resolution. But could you kind of explain the requirements for IoT and then how we were able to help you fix that?
One of the products that Chart sells is we we have a fuel station for liquid natural gas, and we put those fuel stations out, and some of them are mobile even. We put those fuel stations out in the field, and then our field engineers need to be able to remote in to update the logics, the PLCs, on how the program is working, and we also need to be able to see the data to see when we need to refill the tanks. So with putting the controls logics out in the field, those devices are on any dynamic IP out there, and we needed to be able to remotely access them without, having somebody on site. So we went to the vendor of our router that we put on our fuel stations, and we had several iterations of trying to work through that. And Alkira, since we had already had a relationship, they were like, oh, we know how to do that. We can fix that. So we actually worked on a deal where we could actually customize the product for Chart. We had, at the time, 40 fuel stations out in Eastern Europe that we needed to remotely access on dynamic random VPNs out there. And similarly, we needed to allow the customer access to those devices. So we also needed to segment each customer from each other customer and also allow our Chart field techs to be able to get in there. The third kind of piece of that puzzle was we are also allowing our field engineers to actually provision a new station as it comes out. So it's that easy that a field engineer can click the button that we tell them to click, and it's deployed, and now they can VPN into their device.
That's great. And that use case just continues to grow, right? I mean, that's something that you're going to expand on as you guys go forward.
Yeah, so Chart's plan is to expand those fuel stations to hundreds of fuel stations, not only in Europe, but we also have a few in the US now. So we can monitor the telemetry, and we can keep our field techs in more regional locations, so they only have to go for mechanical issues. We can do reprogramming remotely. A little bit more about Chart. We also added, Chart has an SD-WAN. All of our networks are private, partially for security. I think the last guy was talking about security and how we need to keep, corporate data safe. So we are in energy and chemical. We have Colonial Pipeline on our mind always. So in order for us to get all of those branch offices access to every other branch office and save us money, we did switch to doing DIA type access. So all of our access is over an SD-WAN. Adding an SD-WAN device in the cloud is also very complicated. When we first did it, we only had an entrance in the US, and Alkira has enabled us to expand so we can add any resource in any cloud and connect them to our SD-WAN really simply. And we don't have to redo all of our segmentation and redo all of our policies because they're already there in the Alkira cloud.
That's great. There was a long-haul connectivity play also that we discussed in terms of, global connectivity between regions that was always a challenge for you guys. Can you kind of discuss that and how you're leveraging Alkira to solve that as well?
Sure, yeah. So specifically speaking about the case where we had engineers in India that needed to access drawings, through every effort we've tried to reduce their latency to access even their license server to bring up their SolidWorks. We can't control beyond, in this case it was Tata, and it wasn't necessarily Tata's fault, but we only have a 200 meg circuit, let's say, at that branch office, and so the maximum capacity they can get anywhere is limited by Tata's ability to get it from India to the United States. And so what we did was we opened a data center, or we opened a cloud location in India and in West Europe. So now they only need to connect locally in country, and we use Alkira's backbone to get that resource in the United States much more fast than we could do as Chart alone. And we don't have to pay for the bandwidth going across
That's always a plus,
the
right?
ocean. Yeah.
So if I may, how was your experience with this deployment? How quick was it versus the traditional way of doing things?
Our VPN for our fuel station deployment, we literally did that 40 stations in 2 weeks. That was a really quick deploy. And for us to do that ourselves, we would have had to buy head-end routers. We would have had to develop the software to do microsegmentation because this was a very new product for us. So we did that in 2 weeks. Our SD-WAN deployment, we did in a matter of a few days. We could basically just click deploy our Silver Peaks into the cloud and join them with our mesh, and we were good to go.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
So last question I have for you is really what's next? You know, how do you plan on scaling, and how do you see partnering with Alkira in the future for some requirements that you have upcoming?
Really, we're going to just expand more of our SD-WAN so we can get into more data centers. Again, we have branch offices and manufacturing plants in more cities coming. Like we can add one in India, we can add one, even Australia when we get Australia plants, South America. And this will allow us to, I know Azure is a quick deploy, AWS is a quick deploy, but connecting them to the network is not a quick deploy. So as we go through mergers and acquisitions, we can simply turn up a new CXP in whatever region we need it to be in, and we have instant access. The bigger part of our partnership with Alkira by far is our fuel stations, though.
Yeah.
So the fuel stations project for us is a big moneymaker. We can actually not just sell them the facilities. These are like, think like your gas tank when you fill up your gas. These are LNG dispensers that fill the old diesel trucks that are now LNG. We put those dispensers everywhere. Now we can also be a value add because the customer can remotely see whether that station is behaving or not without, sending out their own techs as well. So that's a big expansion, and we plan on covering Europe and the United States.
Mm-hmm. Susan, if you may, talk a little bit about the availability of the network, right? What's been your experience from that perspective, and do you feel comfortable with the level of redundancy or high availability that the solution provides?
Yeah, Alkira gave us some visibility that cloud networks don't have for us as well. When you're putting in networking in the cloud, you have to turn on the telemetry, subscribe to it, and you have to pay whatever your cloud provider is to just even monitor your own network. And you don't really know what the data bits are going in or out. They just charge you some random amount, pretty much. Their fuzzy networking is a challenge for everybody in monitoring, I think. So what Alkira allowed us to do is now we can see every data packet going in and out, and we can secure it because we no longer have to manage multiple route tables in multiple clouds. We can say point everything at Alkira, and we have deployed firewalls inside Alkira, so we don't even use the cloud internet exit as a direct exit. We have full IDS, IPS using our technology that we're comfortable with, Cisco firewalls and Palo Alto firewalls, that integrate with our on-prem based solutions. And Alkira was able to help us meet our cybersecurity requirements by doing a quick deploy of that.
Yeah. So say a little bit about compliance then on top of that, right? So we have so many questions that we can ask her, right? They've just been through the whole solution, so.
Right, so I mentioned everybody's concerned, especially in energy and chemical, that our IoT devices need to be protected. And one of the newer things that manufacturers are doing is we're getting cyber insurance. So in order for us to get cyber insurance, like they wouldn't even give us cyber insurance without certain levels of security. That's why we needed to secure all of our internet exits, even from the cloud, and entrances. So that was a big part of it. Our cyber insurance required us to do some unique things with our cloud access. The other part of it is, if we have to be NIST compliant, we also have to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row. And
wonderful. Yeah, that's great. And tell us about your experience with the SaaS type environment, right? In networking, we've never seen end-to-end SaaS deployed ever. This is the first solution of its type that gives you end-to-end SaaS, no agents to deploy, no software to deploy, no hardware to deploy. You just come on the website and you configure a global infrastructure literally in minutes, and it comes up magically in 1 hour, less than 1 hour, right? So what's been your experience with that from the, talk a little bit about the initial deployment and how you use the scripting to control that in the future, if I may, right?
So for us, it's truly networking actually
Right.
as a service.
Right.
We can go into the portal, provision any site that we want to provision, and basically apply the policies that have already gotten there. So even, when you talk about scripting, we don't do a whole lot of scripting because you guys have made it so easy for us. Right. And that helps us not have to hire an Azure networking person, an AWS networking person, because like I said, we're a three-man shop. We have 700 plus devices in our terrestrial networks that we deal with, plus the customers, plus all the circuits for all of those sites. We have over 40 sites that we deal with. So we're, managing all the circuits as well. So what Alkira do now is we don't have to, learn the Azure networking to the level of detail Azure wants us to and change it 25 times because they decided that, something wasn't working, so we need to make a whole new architecture out of it.
Right. Thank you.
So we don't have vWANs, we don't have vHubs, we don't have virtual gateways, we don't have any of that anymore that we have to deal with.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We're running out of time, so we'll open it up to you guys. They've had a great experience, and we also have some other customers sitting here. Please come visit our booth, and you're welcome to ask them questions. We also have a dinner tonight. You can mingle with those customers as well. So please, any questions from the audience? So thank you so much. We talked about segmentation, we talked about end-to-end policy, we talked about routing controls, we talked about high availability, replacing the long-haul backbone with the cloud backbone on Alkira, and it literally happens in hours. And then you can test it for a couple of weeks and get things up and running. Please.
Just one question.
Uh-huh.
How do you see yourself different from an Aviatrix kind of?
So, and again, you can talk to Aviatrix, but our understanding is they came more from the orchestration side, and then they have a DIY type solution that you deploy yourself, you maintain the nodes, you have to deploy nodes in the VPCs, you have to deploy nodes if you want redundancy for firewalls and stuff like that. In our case, we are as a service built into the cloud. Our infrastructure resides in the cloud, and we optimize the cloud. Right? We don't use we only use raw capabilities of the cloud. And then we are a cloud inside clouds to optimize all of your cloud environments, which end up solving your, seamlessly integrating with your hybrid environments as well as remote users, deploying firewalls that you standardize on, like that from Palo Alto, Cisco, Checkpoint, Fortinet. All those are deployable literally within minutes. We make them elastic, we make them highly available. One of our customers is reducing the number of firewalls from 80 just now to 16. That's the level of cost savings that you have with our solution. Otherwise, you end up doing it yourself, and you have the same old problem of upgrading nodes and whatever you used to do in the traditional networks, you end up doing that. So this is a new age network, which is completely different. No agent, no servicing on the customer's part. We take charge of that. We do it, everything in the background. We give you the level of control that nobody else can. It's a highly enterprise class, carrier class infrastructure that we have built. Any other questions we can answer?
So are you leveraging one of the three?
Yes, we leverage the cloud providers because the level of investment that they're doing is not comparable by others right now, right? So we decided to sit in the cloud, and we can expand outside the cloud when we need to. It's done in a very, with the layers of abstraction that allow us to expand into multiple other environments. Yeah, would love to have you talk. Yeah, please.
Any plans for FedRAMP certification?
I'm sorry? People keep asking us. Let's talk privately. I'll let you know. Right? It'd be awesome to get into that market as well because they can significantly benefit from that. Yeah, it's been a great experience. As I said, in my lifetime, I've seen many transitions in the networking industry. This is the one that mostly excites me the most after the early days at Cisco, where we were deploying 40, 50,000 node networks in the early 90s. The speeds and feeds used to be lower in kilobits, but the number of branches were probably even more at that time, right? So now we are seeing the biggest transition of our lifetime into the cloud, and it's just the beginning. So thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much, Susan, for presenting on our behalf and adopting our solution. And thanks, Kevin, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.